Hello, welcome to a new video, and today is going to be my week 8 and 9 recap of the daily painting challenge. So I'll pop a link to the playlist up in the cards if you haven't seen any of the others or don't know what I'm talking about. But I'm doing a new painting 6 days a week over on Instagram, and this is where I just round them up and talk a little bit about my process and what I think of them. So this video might have some noises in the background because the landscapers are here, but I'm hoping that you'll be able to hear me more than them. So I'm going to try and make this short and sweet, but hopefully it will be interesting, and let's get started. Day 43 was in the Italian Sketchbook. This is a Royal Talens, it's slightly smaller than A5, and I'm really enjoying working in this sketchbook, and you'll have seen on the previous video that I did start this when we went away to Bristol, and then we also went away to London, so there's some London sketches in this as well. And this is actually my first unfinished spread. I do mean to finish it, but I feel like I need to let go of that sort of I have to finish every spread in the sketchbook. But I can easily fill up the rest of the page with some more leaves and berries. So these were referenced from my own photos from when we went to the Cotswolds. And really easy, I didn't actually use paint on this one. This was all Neocolor pastels and Prismacolor pencils. They have smudged a little bit, but I really like the texture of them. I really like the roughness, and I really like the colours as well. They're nice and bold and bright. And yeah, it was quite experimental, especially like in the left-hand corner, but I really like the way that it looks, and it was a nice way to collect all the photos that I'd taken and put them into one place. Certainly for like nature references and stuff. I usually take a lot of photos, and so it was nice to actually use them because I just wanted them for references for something like this. Day 44 is also in the Royal Talens Sketchbook, and that's this daisy piece. And this was done when I got home, but again it was referenced from a photo I took from a walk when we were in the Cotswolds. And this was done with gouache and then Prismacolor pencils over the top, so no Neocolor pastels in this one. But I'm really proud of how this came out. I really like the texture. It feels very busy, but it kind of works. I think the busyness of like the texture in the background helps make the daisies stand out more. It feels quite scribbly and a little bit different for me, but I'm really pleased with it, and I really like the muted tones. And then the little pops of yellow and the purple, I think that works really nicely. Day 45 was in my little A5 sketchbook, and this was a time challenge, again using a reference from our trip away, and this was Durham Park. I noticed when I was writing down what I'd done each day that a lot of the references that I've used for these 2 weeks are my own photos, so I'll link down below when I haven't used my own, but most of them will just say own reference. So this one was really fun to do. This was my first sort of timed challenge where I did multiple of them. So as you can see, obviously this one was the 2 minutes drawing, and then I did the same reference 5 minutes and 15 minutes. So I set a timer for myself for each of these, and it definitely changes the way that you work. I really recommend doing it because it's quite fun and it really makes you think less because you've got not much time. And obviously I prefer the one where I had more time to finish it and definitely add more details. I really like the way the tree came out with that one. But I'm also quite taken with the 2 minute one, just because 2 minutes is a really short amount of time to create a piece of artwork. And I think my least favourite is the 5 minute one. That one I used more paint, and the 2 minute one I didn't really have time to mix it or anything, so that is just pure Neocolor pastel, and then because they're water soluble, I did water down a little bit for the sky. But yeah, it was a really fun one, and I definitely want to do more time challenges going forward. Day 45 wasn't my own reference, so I'll pop a link to that down below. And it was this large painting in my big sketchbook, and this is just like a woodland scene, and I used the technique of the pink underpainting, which I have done before, way back in the beginning of the challenge, so I wanted to try that again. And then I worked over the top with acrylic paints. And I'm really pleased with this one. I really love how the pink underpainting really changes the mood of it. It definitely feels more like ethereal and dreamlike, and it kind of feels a little bit retro, I think, because of the pink. But yeah, I'm really pleased with how this one came out. I think it's really, again, it's quite different for me. I think these 2 weeks I really did challenge myself a little bit and push out of my comfort zone, and I think it feels very rewarding doing that, especially when it comes out in a nice way, as well as obviously learning different techniques and things. So this one's very sparse on the details, which isn't usually like me. And I did limit myself adding all extra details with like coloured pencils, and I just kept it to a little bit of Neocolor pastels and mostly acrylic paints. And I think it works really well. I think there's enough definition there so that you know what it is. And overall, I'm really happy with that one. Day 47 was this loose piece, which is a radish. And this was the video for Sunday, so I did put up a real-time paint with me for this one, and I'll pop a link down below if you haven't seen that. But this was quite a quick one. I've done quite a few quick ones before in this challenge of the houseplants, but I wanted to switch it up a little bit, and I very rarely draw vegetables or anything like that, so I thought it would be interesting to see how that would transfer. And I kept it with the bright colours and the like minimal shading and everything, and it's very stylized and very basic, but I do really like how it came out, and I think it would be nice to continue this series. And yeah, there's not much to say about that one, but I think when I'm short on time, I'm going to do more in this style. Day 48 was the day that I launched my Patreon, and so I wanted to do something that was really joyful and like celebratory of that. And it was also the first prompt that I'd done for Peachtober, so this combines that prompt of tulips with obviously me celebrating launching my Patreon. And I'm so pleased with how this came out. It just feels very joyful, and obviously it reminds me of that day, and I like the mixture of the colour pencil details over the top, and obviously I don't draw characters in my work basically at all. So this felt, considering it wasn't a subject that I'm used to, it felt very easy, and I didn't use any references or anything for it, and I'm really pleased with the result, so that kind of helps my confidence going forward. I really like the extra white details I added on the top and the texture on the grass. The one thing I think I can improve on is the gradient in the background. I definitely struggle when it comes to gouache, making like the transitions between the colour really smooth. So that was tricky for me, but definitely something I can improve on. And yeah, I really like the colours in this one. I like how the background sits back because it's quite faded and muted, and then it really helps the foreground come to be like the main focus. On to week 9 now, and day 49, and this was when Mitch and I went to London for a few days. So the first one was done of Nelson's column, and this was just a pretty quick sketch done in my sketchbook using the limited supplies that I took with me. This was done with my Prismacolor pencils, and it's very basic, you know, there's not much to it. This was done as part of Peachtober again, and this is the clouds prompt, and I think that definitely helps bring more interest into the piece. And the way that I've done the bottom half, so all the buildings and the people, I really like the style of that. So for a quick sketch, I'm pleased with this one, and again, it's quite different for me in that I don't usually draw like people or buildings like that. So considering I'm pleased with the style and how that came out, it definitely makes me want to try that again. So that was day 49, and then on to day 50, again in the same Italian Sketchbook. And this was done plein air in Green Park in London. I was a little bit worried when we went and obviously had planned this trip, because I know I've got to do my daily painting challenge, and I was worried that I wouldn't have time, because obviously we pack our schedule and we want to make the most of being in London. But we managed to take some time out and went to sit in the park just to rest our feet, because we'd walked so much. And I took that opportunity to get my sketchbook out and draw the view that was in front of me. I think normally I wouldn't choose that view because there isn't like a main focus or a really interesting subject in it. It's literally just like grass and trees, and I'll pop the reference that I used up on screen so you can see that. So I focused on like one of the main trees that was in front of me and the lamppost, and then what I really wanted to focus on for this was the light and shadow, which is what I did with the yellow Neocolor pastel on the ground. So I didn't fill in around those sections of light that I could see in front of me, and I really like the way that looks. I think it works having like the creamy coloured paper behind, and not filling that in definitely helps draw my eye to that. And although I didn't manage to get like proper depth, I think that it works really well and I'm really pleased with it. I just used colour pencils and Neocolor pastels for this one, and so no paint. And I think it was really successful, especially for quite a quick plein air piece. Day 51 was a Peachtober prompt of Rise, which makes me think of like rising from the ashes, and so I did this little fire piece. And then I looked at the prompt list and realised that there was one that was campfire, which I completely missed, so it doesn't matter, but probably should have done that for this one. And I just did this in my Sea White sketchbook. I think it would work better if this one was done as a loose piece, because it kind of sticks out in the sketchbook, I think, and I'll have to work out how to work around it. But it's really cute. I didn't use a reference for this one, so that's good. Like, I feel like I'm kind of weaning myself off of references a little bit, because I know I've spoken before about that being like my comfort zone and safety net. And this was done with gouache and then some minimal colour pencils added on top for like the texture on the ground. Very cute and very basic. Days 52 and 53 I'm merging into one here because they were both done on the same spread in my Italian Sketchbook, and that was these studies of a rough hawkbit, which is this plant which definitely looks like a dandelion. This side I did for day 52, and then day 53 I added on these studies, which is of the dandelion and the hawkbit leaves. And this feels quite different for me. I really like that I added on the purple marker in the background. That definitely helped like fill the space quickly. I was really enjoying using that marker to fill in that colour. It definitely helps draw interest and bring the plant actually into focus a bit more. And it was also really quick. That's definitely one of the good things about like using pens and markers, is that it's a lot quicker than if I was like going around all those little details with gouache paint. And it's quite rough and ready, but I'm really pleased with how this came out. And then day 53, I had spent most of the day doing like client illustration work, so I didn't have that much time or like brain power to do my own one, which is why I then added on the leaves to this spread. And I was worried it was kind of like a bit of a cop out for the daily challenge, but just 10 minutes in the sketchbook is better than none. And I also, obviously when I'd done this for the previous day, it kind of left this big blank space in the sketchbook and I wasn't really sure how to fill it. So I'm really pleased that I did go with these, because obviously it ties it all in. And I did sort of notice that if I don't finish a full spread, it kind of makes me nervous to come back to it because I don't know how to finish it. So obviously like when I'm doing something like this, it's the full spread and I don't worry. But if I'm doing something like that just does part of the page and it's just like a partial spread, then I find it harder to finish it later on. So obviously like sketchbooks should just be full of experiments and stuff, but I'm really pleased with how this is coming out and I'm pleased with the artwork. So I think in my head it's kind of like, you know, subconsciously don't ruin this. So we'll see how I go with that one. But that leads us nicely onto day 54. And day 54, because I'd noticed that I was getting a bit more precious about this sketchbook and I didn't want to ruin it, I thought I would try something different and really push myself out of my comfort zone and do a challenge, which was part of Emma Carlisle's Patreon. So as well as starting my own Patreon at the beginning of October, I decided to join Emma's and be part of her process club. And she has a few challenges on her Patreon, and this was challenge 3, where you block in all the shapes first and then you add on the line work over the top. So this was a new technique for me and a new subject, because I decided to do these still lives. And I've only done a few of those before, which you'll have seen in the daily painting challenge, but I'm so pleased with how this came out. I'm really glad that I stepped out of my comfort zone in the sketchbook to do this, because I think it works really well, and it was a really fun one to do. I had a lot of fun doing this and drawing the cat. So this was done with Emma's reference, which she put on her Patreon, and this was done with my own reference of like random things that were on my desk. And I used gouache to block in the basic shapes first, and then went over the top with the line work, and then I added on the background afterwards. It's a really bold spread. The colours are definitely very different to what I usually use, but I really like the sort of warm peachy tones paired with the green. I think that works really nicely. And these didn't take very long. These were pretty quick, but I'm really pleased with the result and definitely something I want to do more. And again, it did help me to sort of be a bit less precious about this sketchbook. And, you know, sketchbooks really are just for fun, and I definitely need to be careful that I'm not being super precise in here, because that's not what this challenge is all about. So that wraps up weeks 8 and 9 for this almost daily painting challenge, and I had a lot of fun with these weeks. I'm really pleased with how I'm pushing out of my comfort zone, and I am also seeing that sort of progression, because I feel like in my head I'm more open to new techniques and materials, and I've had a lot of fun, and I'm really pleased with the artwork that I've created from these weeks. I'm not sure which is my favourite. I really, like I said, I'm pleased with quite a lot of them, which I hope isn't big-headed to say, but possibly the daisies in the sketchbook, or the botanical plants illustrations, or even the Patreon tulip one, just because that one is so bright and colourful. I'd love to hear which is your favourite down below if you do have one, and also what you think of the artwork that I've created in general and how you think the challenge is going, because so far I think it's been really successful and I'm still really excited to paint every day. I'm not burnt out or anything, which I'm really pleased about, because we've still got quite a way to go. So thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoy these videos, and I will see you next Sunday for a journaling video. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you later.